All right, well, we are going to get going for our Parents and Caregivers Digital Awareness Night. My name is Vinny Searcy, and I'm the Director of Pupil Personnel Services here in Norton. And we decided tonight to put together a little information session with the fine folks who are up here that I'll let them introduce themselves in a few minutes. Because digital awareness for our youth is a really important topic. We're seeing the impacts of social media and not the positive ones every single day. And you'll hear about the dangers, you'll hear about the impact it's having on our students' mental health. And we're gonna try to give you some information, but also give you some takeaways on how to protect your kids and give them resources so that they can be safe in using their gaming platforms, their iPhones, their iPads, and so forth. So with that being said, I'll pass it on down to the folks here that are gonna be part of the presentation.
Hi, my name is Detective Mayu with the Norton Police Department. Been on for about 16 years.
Mark Robichaud, I'm a school resource officer, primarily out of the middle school.
Jacob Dennett, primarily based here at the high school. I also work with the folks at the Yale School, and privileged to have that assignment and responsibility. It's an absolute pleasure to do, and I'm grateful for you folks that did come here to join us tonight, so thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Karen Winsper, Director of Instructional Technology here in the district, and we have conducted a similar event during the pandemic, or when we were virtual, mostly virtual, so we do appreciate you coming out tonight, but we will be sharing this recording with you, the presentation with you, so that you'll have access to it after the event.
Hi everybody, I'm Kyla Farias. I am the Education and Prevention Outreach Coordinator for the Children's Advocacy Center of Bristol County, and essentially my whole job is to go all over Bristol County and facilitate trainings on prevention and just do a lot of community outreach, just to let you all know what we do and what we're here for. Oh, I'm just taking it away? Beautiful, okay. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. I'm really excited. I love having these conversations with parents. Similar to the conversations I have with you all, I oftentimes have with youth. So I have the same conversations we're going to talk about when it comes to social media, gaming, sexting, exploitation. All of this information is also given to youth, as long as the schools allow me into their buildings. We have all of these in-depth conversations about what's happening in culture and society and what pressures are being put on a lot of our youth to really engage in a lot of these behaviors. So today I'm going to touch on some of the negative things we're seeing happen online. I'm going to talk about our exploitation unit. So we do a lot of the interviewing, the healing, and getting justice for children who have been sex trafficked. And we'll explain a tiny bit about how that relates to social media and everything that's happening online. I'm also going to give you all a couple of ways that you can talk to your kids, any child really in your life, about ways to protect themselves and not just hammer into them that social media and technology is bad, because it is used for a lot of good, and there are ways we can change the pace to really get kids to look at the ways that technology can be used for them instead of against them. So just a little bit of background for anybody who isn't familiar with children's advocacy centers. We facilitate the forensic interviews whenever there's an allegation of criminal abuse or neglect. So if you're familiar with the Department of Children and Families, they investigate every case of abuse and neglect. We only do it when there's a criminal element. So what we see primarily is sexual abuse, physical abuse, severe neglect, child trafficking, and under that same umbrella is a lot of our cyber crimes. And essentially what we do is, instead of children having to be interviewed by a detective or hospital staff or somebody from DCF, they're able to sit in a room where they're interviewed by a forensic interviewer who is trained in trauma, trained in how to talk to children based on their development level, and they have a conversation with that one individual instead of being interrogated by multiple people. Because sometimes that can feel like a lot for kids, and it can feel like they're being bombarded with questions and they have to have the right answer instead of telling their truth. So we have this space where kids can come, they can meet with an interviewer while their family members meet with a family advocate. So the advocates work with family members on getting therapy for themselves, getting financial resources, housing resources, whatever you need at that time, even just information in the term of resources. We also have an assistance dog on site, Chief, and so he can be present in any forensic interview as long as he isn't booked. He can sit with the kid, they can pet him, they can feed him treats. He's been phenomenal. Research shows that with an assistance dog present, disclosures in children go from 30% to 80%. So he is just phenomenal to be able to sit, especially with younger kids, and especially with kids who just love animals. We also have a nurse on site who can do a lot of exams, testing, evidence collection, even just giving kids information about their bodies is just really big, where we can just have this one-stop shop that kids can come in and get everything they need. We are broken down into a couple of different elements. Interviewing is one, mental health services is two, and then three is my program, which is all about education and prevention. So again, like I mentioned before, we only get involved when it's a criminal act, and these are a couple of the things we see. Primarily, our services are used for sexual abuse, physical abuse, and trafficking. I'm going to give you a couple of statistics, not to scare the crap out of you, but just to give you a realistic image of what's happening in our society now. We know in the digital age, children are exposed to pornography before the ages of 7 and 9 years old now. Can anybody guess why it's happening so young now? Any ideas of why kids are being exposed to porn? At 7. 7 is so young. Their little brains aren't even formed yet. Social media, absolutely. So kids are on social media sites and gaming sites, and a lot of the advertisements that are being sent to them on their screens, it's really tailored towards pornography. So they're just clicking a link, not realizing where it's going to lead them. And they end up kind of in this hole of not recognizing what this stuff is and not feeling comfortable enough to go to their parent or caregiver to really discuss and ask for more information. A couple of years ago, the average kid was exposed to pornography from 11 to 13. So we are in unprecedented times of having to talk to kids earlier and earlier about their sexuality and about what all of this online stuff means. On average, we see 700 cases a year. Last year, 213 of our cases were sex trafficking. And under that umbrella of sex trafficking is our sexting cases, as well as kids who are being exploited online from online predators. So we're seeing this number continue to grow just because of kids' sheer access to technology. What we also know is 1 in 5 teenagers are going to disseminate or receive sexual images of each other's bodies throughout their time in middle school and high school. This is extremely scary, not only because they're exposing their bodies, not only because they're opening themselves up for legal consequences, but also because they're sharing it not through text messages anymore. They're sharing it through Snapchat and Instagram. And what that's doing is it's making it permanent to their digital footprint. So instead of it just being an image that disappears after they get in trouble in school or at home, this is something that is stuck in the internet to be traded among predators. So an image of your child when they were 12 years old can follow them until they're 30 and hoping to get a career. They're not understanding the implications of the things that they're sending. We hope to be able to get into every school and really explain that to kids because we feel like it's just not talked about enough. Here's what we know from a lot of the research. The vast majority of kids are using technology on a daily basis. And if it can connect to the internet, we have to be suspicious of what kids are using it for. A lot of parents will feel very safe in the fact that their kids only use gaming devices. I can tell you all that gaming devices are just as scary as Snapchat and Instagram and any other social media. We know that 95% of kids are using smartphones, but I go into schools and I kind of do a survey of kids of how many devices they're using on a daily basis. 75% of the kids I ask are using 2 or 3 devices that connect to the internet on a daily basis. So that can be a smartphone, a Chromebook, a tablet, a gaming device, and they're using all of them. And on each of those modalities, they're talking to different people, that they're not understanding who these people truly are. What we can't do is go to kids and tell them, social media is scary, don't ever use it again. it's so unrealistic, they're gonna look at us like we're crazy. This is the norm. And it's not just something that we can tell them not to do and take away from them, because there is so much good in it. Kids are able to build community. They're able to explore their interests. They're able to make money. I don't know if any of you have seen, but there's kids as young as 3 years old on YouTube who are becoming like millionaires from reviewing toys. We are in such a different age where kids are really capable of being entrepreneurs, of exploring their creativity. Even kids who are in small towns are able to get their highlight reels out to big cities just because of social media. So we can't tell them not to use it. What we can tell them is what is happening on it and ways that they can protect themselves. Because in reality, nothing's gonna change in society. Just the name of an app. What we really need to do is to change kids' mindsets, because we all were using Facebook in high school. Now they think that Facebook is just for old people. And the same things that kids my age were doing on Facebook, they're now doing on TikTok. They're gonna keep doing the same actions, making the same mistakes. We just have to teach them better. And really explain to them, everything you post is permanent. There is no such thing as deleting something from the internet. You can never scrub it clean. We know that social media gives kids a lot of agency over themselves. Most kids see social media as something that is great, is supportive, is fun, is a way for them to really find people. There are a lot of kids who aren't able to find a social circle in school, and they go home and they're able to find a group that really accepts them and makes them feel like they belong to something. We can't take that away from them. And when we say, if somebody's talking to you a certain way, just block them, we may just tell them to cut off the only friend that they have, which is a huge mistake on our part. A, it doesn't sound realistic, and B, we're taking away a part of their agency. These are the most popular apps last year. Is everybody familiar with all of these apps? No surprise that TikTok is shooting up towards the top. I'm sure by next year it'll be at the 95%. If you are not familiar with any of these apps, I really encourage you to get familiar. We see a lot of cases of parents who come in and don't know what certain apps are used for. So they'll come in with some sort of case of a child who's sending pictures, sharing pictures, receiving pictures that the child thought were being deleted within 24 hours. If parents aren't aware of what Snapchat is and what it's being used for, they're not able to prevent a lot of things that kids are doing. So as soon as one of your kids are talking about an app that they're using, I encourage you all to research it, look it up, what's it being used for, what could go wrong, so that you can really prepare kids. These are a couple of the biggest apps to watch. I have a whole different slide for TikTok, but these are really our biggest concerns. Snapchat particularly, just because the whole veil of Snapchat is that as soon as you send something, it's going to be instantly deleted. We are seeing so many cases of pictures, messages that are being saved, screenshotted, or screen recorded, that kids are thinking that it's gone, it'll never be seen again, and then it shows up. Instagram is also a huge concern, just because a lot of kids create wider following on Instagram, so they're more likely to allow literally anybody to follow them because they want their follower count to be high. And that's not their fault, it's really what's being promoted to them through media. We have this whole new age of influencers who are only making money because they have 1 million to 3 million followers. So to kids, they're thinking, oh, well, if I want to be liked, if I want to make a profit, if I want to have some sort of circle around me, I need to have a lot of followers. So they'll just say yes to any request. Facebook, surprisingly, is still on our list of apps to watch. Most kids, again, will tell you that Facebook is for old people, and none of them are on it. Our main concern is Facebook Marketplace, though. By a show of hands, was anybody familiar with Backpage? Did anybody hear about Backpage? If you're ever interested, it's a dark hole to go into, but look up I Am Jane Doe. They made a whole documentary about it. Backpage was taken down in 2019 for being complicit in sex trafficking. So they were aware of the fact that their site was being used to buy and sell minors. Backpage was designed literally like a sketchier Craigslist, if you can imagine that. When Backpage was taken down in 2019, a lot of people move to Facebook Marketplace. So even if you try to sell a bureau on Facebook Marketplace, there's a lot of red tape to it now because they caught on to the fact that a lot of people moved onto that platform to buy and sell minors. Twitter is also a huge concern, mainly because Twitter has very limited restrictions. So when we talked before about kids being exposed to pornography very young, a lot of that happens on Twitter because Twitter doesn't block or restrict any information from getting out. So a lot of kids are being exposed to a lot of this free videos and photos, which we know are the most gruesome and most horrific. Really, at the end of the day, what makes all of these apps dangerous is the fact that a lot of it has anonymous. It has this whole feature where anybody can pretend to be anybody. We have a whole generation of kids who aren't understanding what a stranger is anymore. When we were taught what a stranger was, it looks different from here. Because on social media, anybody's their friend if they talk to them. Anybody's their friend if they like their pictures. Anybody's their friend if they communicate weekly or monthly. They're not understanding what a true stranger is because they feel so connected because of this veil of the internet. So we're creating a very dangerous culture for kids. Same thing with money exchanges. We should all be kind of concerned with that. I know how convenient it makes all of our lives, but there are a lot of kids who are receiving money from online predators from a lot of these apps like Cash App, Apple Pay, and Venmo. It's extremely hard to track those people because a lot of times you don't need a bank account to sign up for these. So there's not really much to work with when you go to look to who's sending your kid money. Location is very huge on social media. It's kind of a part of the way that kids post. If you ask any of your children to show you their snap map on Snapchat, you're gonna see something like this. These are kids who are allowing everybody who follows them to track their location at any given time. It's extremely dangerous, but they're not understanding really what it means. Same with Instagram. They're allowing a lot of people to see their location. A lot of strangers are able to access kids just based by location. If I go to look up a restaurant on Instagram, if I click that restaurant, I can see everybody who's eaten there in the past month. I can see who posted that on their story today. So that gives me an access to a stranger I never would have seen before. It's very dangerous for kids to have this step up. What we also don't teach kids is when they download an app, location settings are automatically on. So you have to manually go in and turn it off. So it's a huge thing that people don't even know things are tracking them. Video games is very interesting to me because a lot of times we have parents who feel very protected with the fact that their kid only plays video games, my kid only has a Nintendo, my kid only has a PlayStation, they don't even use these social media platforms. What we know from research is the majority of people playing video games on a daily basis are 18 to 34 years old. That means when your child goes onto a video game to play with anybody, there is a huge likelihood that that is a very older adult. We know 83% of youth today are playing with random people online every single day. And that number gets higher and higher after COVID because it really became the norm during those times just to connect with people, just to have somebody to talk to, just to have somebody to play with. As little as 5 years ago, kids were only playing with people they went to school with and people that they knew personally. And now they're just in these random chats with people they've never met before, which, if we bet on it, is going to be somebody much older. If you're not familiar with Discord, I really encourage you guys to get familiar with this. Kids are using this as they play video games and essentially live streaming themselves while they're playing in their bedrooms, in your living rooms. Most times, they're then creating these, what are they called? They're like these groups, but they have a certain name to them, specifically on Discord. Essentially, you go into a group, there's hundreds of people in there, thousands of people in there, and you can talk to them on a daily basis in this group. These are people from all over the world who are communicating on a daily basis through these video games. And essentially, it's building connections between kids and strangers through this imaginary world. What's happening there is, kids are talking to strangers, and the stranger is saying, I want to talk to you after I get off the game. What's your Snapchat? What's your Instagram? What's your number? Can I send you something? A lot of kids are also ending up in a situation or somebody's blackmailing them because this person on Discord or on the video game said, you know, I really like you, I really like playing with you, I want to send you $50 through the game, I want to send you $50 through Roblox. Kids are saying, of course, I love free money, this is great, not realizing that there's strings attached. So this person that now sent $50, a week later is saying, I want my money back, or I want a picture of you. And so kids feel really pressured into this thing where they're saying, oh my gosh, you did give me money, I don't want to get in trouble, and I don't have $50, so I'm gonna have to send you a picture. And a lot of kids just feel so embarrassed and shameful, and kind of like they don't know what to do when somebody asks them for these pictures or videos. So they just do it, because they don't know where else to go. A lot of kids will feel like, I'll get in trouble with my parents, I'll get in trouble with somebody older, I'll get in trouble with my school if I actually go and tell people what somebody's threatening me with. We really have to talk to kids about what to do in these situations so they know if they come to you, you'll get them help, not put them in trouble. Like I mentioned before about the money apps, I also want to mention about the Vault apps. So if any of you look through your Google Play Store or your App Store some point tonight, look up Vault apps. This is a very old picture. Now they look a lot better. Essentially, there are these disguised apps that look like all of the apps that come with our phones. So these are apps that look like your photo app, they look like your calculator app, and kids are hiding their social media and photo albums in these Vault apps. Most parents, even if you take your kids' phones at the end of the night, you're not going to look in their calculator app, so they know that they're bypassing any sort of system or consequences you have in place just by creating this. Some of these apps can actually bypass a lot of schools' security as well. Maybe not here, because I heard they have a pretty good one, but in other places, it can really fly under the radar. So kids who are not allowed to use social media at home are now coming to school and using these platforms. I can't tell you how many parents have come in and said, my kid doesn't have Snapchat. And we have to say, well, really? Here it is right here. I'm pretty sure they do, you just weren't aware of it. Kids are always gonna find a way. Even if it's not on their device, they're gonna log on to their friend's device. They're gonna log on to their teammate's device. They're gonna log on at school. They're always gonna find a way to get into these things. Any questions so far? Okay, we can dive into exploitation really quickly. It's always good just to think about who's looking at your kid's digital footprint. What is this gonna mean for them later on down the road? If you ever wanna really hook kids' ears, talk to them about the celebrities that got canceled in the past couple of years because of things they put on social media. That will blow their minds, because if they can think of the millionaires and even the billionaires and their legal team and all of these teams that they have surrounded by them, if they weren't able to get something scrubbed from the internet, kids definitely can. And they can think about the things that they've said 5 different years ago and who they are today, and kind of compare that and think, oh, I don't want to put anything out there that could get me in trouble later on down the road. Especially in high school, thinking about colleges and universities, 25% of them will review kids' social medias. So there are a percentage of colleges who will actually resend acceptance letters because of kids' social media presence.
That seems low. Only
It does,
25%.
right?
I feel like it should be a lot higher.
I do too. So also, a lot of those schools,
Yeah.
That's why.
what'd you say?
It's right now, the schools need students.
Oh, yeah.
So they're far less to say, oh, I'm not going to accept this particular student because of that. So
They had to catch up with the
ignorance is
times.
bliss.
Yeah, they had to catch up with the times, because what was happening was they weren't getting enough students on campus because they were sending college applications and scholarships. If you can look at some of the prospects a couple of years ago out of a lot of states, recruits were going crazy over these athletes, and they ended up having tweets, having Instagram, Facebook, Twitter things that came to really bite them in the butt. And so now they had these people who had so much potential that they had to say, you can't come to our university, so now they're saying, I don't even really want to look. So we have 25%, but these are the top schools, and if we all know what the Northeast is popular for, it's a lot of our schools. If you want to play sports, you go down south. If you want to go to like MIT or Harvard, you got to come up here. So a lot of our kids that want to stay close to home should be very weary about who's going to look at their social media. When we look at online predators, this number always surprises people. According to the FBI, they're currently tracking 750,000 child predators. They're tracking them because they're looking for more evidence. So we have a lot of cases, especially of kids, who will delete every interaction they've ever had with somebody. In a lot of cases, our police are able to really locate some of the things that they have deleted. But in other cases, these predators are deleting their profiles, deleting their usernames, and leaving no trace of who they truly are. So a lot of people have nothing to work with. So we have these predators who are preying on multiple children. I went to a presentation by the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, and they said that the average predator is 233 miles away from their prey. So kids are talking to people all over the world. It's impossible for them to know who these people truly are, and it's honestly terrifying when we think about the nature of the relationship that they're forming. Grooming is the process that we like to label it. It happens online as much as it happens in person. And a lot of this process starts off really good. Kids are getting money, getting compliments, getting likes. And then all of a sudden they're getting threats, and they're getting blackmailed, and they're getting hurt, and they're getting told that they can't trust anybody, and they're getting told, don't tell your parents or friends about me. And now kids are being left scared. So now this person has all the control over this child. Grooming has a certain process, and the first step is access. We eliminated this whole veil of access once we created social media. Predators don't have to look for kids, they don't have to target kids. They just need to go on social media and they can find a plethora of kids who are available to talk to, stalk, and honestly harm. Kids think that this is very common. 54% of teens believe that online grooming is a common experience. It just comes with their age, it comes with having social media, it's not a big deal. 25% of teens interact online with somebody they believe is 30 or older, and they don't think that there's anything wrong with that. A lot of kids I spoke to during my time, especially as a clinical case manager, all thought that they were more mature for their age. So they had more to talk about with a 30-year-old. They had more to talk about with somebody who was in their 20s, because nobody who was 14 or 15 understood them. We're really getting into this dangerous area of kids only feeling like they can confide in people online. 1 in 7 teens tell somebody online something they would never tell anybody in person. So there's kind of this invisible cloak that goes up when we're talking through a screen where we feel just more comfortable telling somebody everything about us. Online solicitation is huge too. You probably can't see because it's a little bit blurry, but both of the lines are boys and girls. And as you can see, boys and girls aren't that far off from each other. A lot of times we'll have these conversations more so with girls because we expect them to be victims. Boys are just as likely to be solicited and even exploited. TikTok is really the big one, and honestly we're fearful of it because we're just exploring it. It just became popular last year, so now we're still seeing some of the things that are coming out of it. A couple of years ago, it became mandated that a lot of social media sites have to report the numbers of exploitation they catch on their site. TikTok last year had the lowest number of exploitation reports. That makes no sense because all kids are on TikTok. A lot of people caught on to this, like the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and they created exposés. If you ever want to read them, they're really interesting. They're finding out that TikTok is this mecca of exploitation, and they're just not knowing what to do with it. One of the cases that they quote is actually out of Texas. It was a 45-year-old man that showed up at a 13-year-old's house. Knocked on her front door, and the mom answered, like, who are you and what are you doing here? And he said, I'm in love with your daughter. I've been talking to her every day on TikTok. The mom obviously called the police, but these are cases that they're seeing all the time, all over the world. And this man traveled halfway across the country to show up at this girl's house. So we have kids that we really need to talk to them, not only about strangers, but about the private information that they're sharing with people that they think are their friends or even their lovers. Sextortion is a huge thing that we're seeing now on video games, on social media. Essentially, it's somebody who will message a child and say, I have a photo of you, I have information on you. If you don't send me a picture or video of yourself, I'm gonna post this everywhere. Most cases of these are kids who are 13 or younger, and they are messaged every single day. So these are kids who can't run away from something by just blocking somebody. These are people that they've allowed to follow them on every single social media site. These are people that they've shown them who their friends are. So now they add their friends and tell their friends to message them back. So it's really scary for a lot of these kids, and most of them don't go get help. We're seeing financial sextortion as well. So this is happening more so with our youth that are boys. This is happening on video game sites. So it's essentially people who are extorting kids for money. We're seeing a lot of kids who are being harassed to the point that they want to take their own lives because these people just don't stop. A couple of things that we could just tell you in terms of social media: don't lead with scare tactics. Don't tell kids the horror stories about what's happening online, because most kids feel like they're kind of superhuman and it will never happen to them. Oh, that sucks for them, but it would never happen to me. It could always happen to you, but we know that as we grow older. They think that they're just invincible. So don't scare them. Don't tell them not to use social media. Don't tell them not to communicate with people online. Tell them how to do it safely. Talk to them about not sharing private information. Never giving away your address, never giving away who their best friends are, never giving away your information. Make sure that you're really talking to them about that. Also, if they're on video games, making sure that they realize they should only talk to people on video games about the video game. Don't talk to them about your sports schedule. Don't talk to them about what you're doing this weekend. Just talk about the game, and that's really a huge way to protect yourself. Sexting is something that we're also very concerned about, because we're seeing a lot of those cases out of the middle schools, high schools, and now even elementary schools, unfortunately. So these are when kids are sending pictures of themselves or another person to their friends, either as a joke or because they like them, and they're nude or partially nude. We classify it as child pornography because they cannot take pictures of themselves under the age of 18. A lot of kids will joke this off and laugh about it, but in reality, it's illegal to share them, it's illegal to receive them, and it's illegal to forward them. So we have a lot of kids. I run a diversion program through the DA's office. We have kids who end up getting in trouble because they get a picture of their classmate and decide that it's a joke and forward it to more people and end up exposing this classmate's naked body to 10 different people. They just distributed child pornography unknowing. That's a felony, and a lot of kids don't even recognize that, so we really have to make sure we're checking in with them. Always making sure you're talking to your kids about consent, the legal ages of consent. We have to be very concerned with nude images too in this new social media age, because if any of you ever decide to open your kids' timelines on Instagram, it's very inappropriate pictures. Like, we have a lot of people who are very much putting this information into kids' heads. TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat. There's a lot of nude and partially nude bodies that are being advertised on this space, even by their favorite celebrity or influencer. So you're not thinking it's that big of a deal. We have to remind them that it is. Aside from anything legally, we also just have to make sure they're aware of the emotional consequences. Most kids don't care though, because they think they're not going to get caught. 12% of teenagers think that they'll get in trouble with school if they get caught sexting, and only 8% think that they'll get in trouble with the law. That's kind of terrifying, because we know we had like 100 cases of it last year. So them thinking that they're a bit more invincible to this case is kind of scary for us. We never want kids to end up in this predicament either, because like I said before, it's their digital footprint. I would never want anything that I made a mistake of when I was 14 to follow me to now. That's just so embarrassing, and that shame really doesn't leave you. A couple of messages that don't work: scare tactics, overrated statistics. I remember when I was in high school, I wasn't allowed to go on a spring break trip because my mom told me everybody dies when they go on spring break trips, and showed me like the Natalie Holloway case to terrify me. Don't do that to your kids. Don't scare them. Don't make them think that everything is out to hurt them, because there are good people and there are good things that come with the internet. Don't try and scare them, because I'm telling you right now, they're not going to be scared. They're going to think you're foolish, and you don't understand them. Don't dismiss them. Don't say, well, just don't talk to that person. They're bothering you, block them. Well, just report them. That's not so easy when it's a classmate you're going to see in the hall. That's not so easy when everybody's friends with this one person and you don't want to be ostracized. And make sure you're not giving them too negative of a view on social media. Don't say that any social media is bad or good. I've talked to a lot of parents who feel the best about Pinterest. They have such good recipes that come from Pinterest and decoration ideas. Pinterest is the best. Pinterest has an entire exploitation unit because so many kids are being harmed on Pinterest. Who would have ever thought that? There's no such thing as a good or bad app. You just have to be mindful of your mindset. What does work? Social norms, encouraging kids. Show them the kids that got scholarships because of what they posted online. Show them the kids who built careers off of what they did online in a positive way. Show them the activism and awareness that is happening online and how we're really moving the needle for how much young people know. Make sure that you're accurate, you're skill-based, and you're resourceful. And if you're ever needing any sort of resources, we have them. I bought some brochures with me today, but if you ever need anything additional, please always feel free to reach out to us. We also facilitate this training for kids. It's a lot longer and a little bit more interactive just to get them to start thinking about how they're using social media. A lot of it is based on safety, as well as the sexting laws, as well as the social and emotional consequences of sexting, and just getting support in general, because we never want them to feel like they're alone on an island. We're always here to support them and support you. Any questions for me? I appreciate you all listening, because when I first read all of this, I was kind of horrified and scared, so I appreciate you being so willing to take it all in. I did leave a couple of resources here, as well as some brochures on that table back there. So if you want to take anything, if you want to kind of let this marinate and have any questions for me later, feel free to reach out to me. All the information's on the brochures as well. Thank you.
We also have a presentation that's going to repeat some of the things that she just shared. So I'm just going to plug it in. And we're going to skip quickly through some of it, but I wanted to just reiterate some of the resources that were just shared. We have direct links, and we'll share a presentation with you so that you can actually go to the sites and be able to get a clear picture of maybe some real guidance about what you can say. I don't know about you, but sometimes technology is hard, right? Sometimes our kids know more than we know, and that's embarrassing to have that conversation, to admit that they know more than us. And I'm the tech director, and I know that my own kids know more than me when it comes to gaming and when it comes to social media and interacting with other people. So if I know that, and I know how hard it is to have a conversation with them about some of these topics, there's no parenting class about how to talk about sexual exploitation. What is that language like? How can we sit down and be honest? Because this is scary. I don't know if anybody else was a little bit alarmed, but this is a scary topic. I don't know, Mr. Searcy, if you want to just jump in for a second while I get this going.
So and we are definitely seeing the impacts. I mean, I think sometimes people think, well, it's Norton, it's this little small town, so forth and so on. The impacts are there, both the good and the bad of social media. We've seen our kids do some amazing things through social media, or connecting and supporting one another and supporting our other students from different perspectives and backgrounds. But we also know, and we have school administrators and resource officers, the countless hours that are put into trying to help students and families who find themselves in some of these situations, especially around the sexting. in helping them try to navigate the social embarrassment, the pressures, the legal applications and consequences. So again, we're not here to scare you or keep you away from, or your kids away from these sites, but really to bring awareness, ask the questions. I have two 20-something-year-olds and they absolutely know way more than I do. I actually am on a Discord group for gaming, believe it or not, at my age. But I had no idea until we spoke that that's what Discord used. And I'm exposed to this here at the high school and with the kids all the time. These things change so rapidly that we as adults have to kind of work together as a team, both at the schools, the DA's office, getting that information out so parents can use it. And that's what we're hoping to do tonight. And so now we're going to turn it over to our SROs.
Yeah, if I could just invite you all up and we can kind of do this together. Again, I'm going to move quickly and I will hand over the mic when it gets to kind of our turns together. So this is your team, your Norton team, and we so are appreciative of our partner coming and joining us tonight. We're going to talk a little bit, I'm going to be specific about just some general digital safety and again to repeat some of the apps, maybe some overviews of parental controls that you can set up on devices. And then the SROs will talk a little bit about also some specific things to look for. So I was really happy that I got the 4 right, the 4 top social media. The reason that I kept this slide in here for you is the bottom, the teen slang and the emoji use on social media. My mother loves emojis. She's 83 and she texts us, me and my children, my husband, and she's constantly texting us emojis. And my kids will often chuckle because she doesn't know what some of the emojis mean for the teens, right? And so I wanted to be sure that I left that in. There's a link to this that I'll share this with you and you'll be able to click on it and go. Again, privacy. One of my favorite images is of a dog sitting at a computer screen and he's typing and it says, "No one knows you're a dog on the internet," because you can pretend to be whoever you want to be. And then recently that cartoon was updated. Everybody knows who you are on the internet now, because we're sharing personal information. Our data is like gold. So when you think that you're anonymous, you're not necessarily anonymous anymore. So again, I kept this up because Common Sense Media is one of the best resources, and I think our SROs will agree. I see, Sergeant Dennett is shaking his head. But we have this parent's guide to TikTok. I love TikTok, but I'm not on the scary side of TikTok. I'm on the recipes and the cat videos, okay? And so you might be there too, but our kids are being targeted, and so this family guide will help you be able to have conversations if you're not on that app, okay?
Before you jump off.
Oh yeah.
So just on the privacy settings, location settings, as Kyla pointed out, not only is it loaded usually automatic when you bring that app on board, whatever your device is, but oftentimes too, if there's an update of that app, it may, even though you have changed the settings to make it private, those updates sometimes, without you even knowing it, will turn that back and turn all that back on. So you want to try to get in the habit when those go through those updates to just double check periodically and make sure that the settings you think are in place are actually still in place. We definitely see a lot of that being the case.
So, and I guess I'll just jump back to this for a second. Free apps are not free. All of these social media apps are free for kids to download, free for us to download, but we're actually the payment, right? The data, the usage of these apps. And so when we look at the in-app recommendations, how many times have you been on a site and then gone someplace outside of the site and you're like, I was just looking at this and why is this ad showing up? Is it listening to me?
It's even worse.
Yeah.
Talking about
Yes, I was just talking about this. Is this listening to me? And so that's what apps do. Like they track you outside of the app oftentimes, and then you might get in-app recommendations. And also, hey, how about following this person? We think this is a good person for you. We'll often see some extremist groups are being pushed on, certain students. Do you want to grab?
I was just going to say,
One of the other things we do is we work with Children's Hospital on a threat assessment team. And as part of the community briefing, we were just talking about this, that kind of format, so a student or a child could get on kind of benign search on one app. And I believe, I might have the time wrong, it might be even less, but I believe it was within 13 minutes, they could go from this benign search to being moved through the apps and through the internet to a pretty dark, extremist group. That's how quickly the algorithms and the ads move them and the connections move them from one instance of, hey, I just want to know what this is, to full immersion. And so from their perspective, which is a little bit different, but the same idea, being connected to things that you probably don't want your child connected to, it happens very, very quickly using the methods that Karen is talking about.
One of our digital learning specialists, he did an experiment and he signed up for Instagram pretending to be a 13-year-old girl to see what would happen. And immediately after he signed up, so he used a 13-year-old's birthday, and probably within the first 5 or 10 minutes, he was pushed towards certain sponsored influencers to follow, and then adult men reached out to the account asking to connect. Now this is a 40-something-year-old guy who created this fake site. And so we, maybe as adults, need to do this too, so we get a sense, maybe you create a fake account so you can see what it's like and what your children are exposed to. Social media is not, based on the user agreements, not to be used by any students or children under the age of 13. They can very easily, they know what the year is, they can change it, they can lie. Oftentimes they'll tell us, oh, I asked my mom or dad and they said it was okay. But I think if the mom or dad knew some of the things that we're sharing tonight, they might not say that it's okay.
Just one thing I wanted to add is if you do check up on your child and you're looking through their account, remember, as other people are making fake accounts, so on your children. Mm-hmm. So they may say, hey, mom, dad, I have these 2 accounts and that's it. But then they may also have a handful that they don't want you to know about, that they are listing under other names.
100%. So just absolutely. I think the Vault apps are really sneaky, right? And I think knowing what to look for, and I know that you're going to talk a little bit about how to kind of find some things in a bit, but I think if you are armed with anything, it's if you have an iPhone or if you have an Android phone, going into the stores where you can download the apps, because your children probably are not using their own credit card, tied to the account. They're probably using your account. So there's a way for you to kind of keep track of that. So these were some of the apps, and again, Common Sense Media, social networking for teens is a great resource for you. I promise I will share this. You'll be able to click on that and it will take you directly to it.
So to this,
A lot of these apps, there's a few here that even, and we were like, I'm not sure. These were, I don't say vetted, but I went to a couple of classes here at school. I talked to some students, I talked to some staff here just last week, and I had like 4 pages worth of them, and said, you know, just show of hands, can you tell me, like, have you heard of this? Do you know folks that use these? All of the ones that you see here were all, you know, selected or identified as ones that they are using. Yik Yak was years ago and seems to have made a return to us here. It's not just on college campuses, but if there's others up there that you don't even know, you know, other than that, like I said, even being in this business as a couple, like, what is that? And lo and behold, talking to people within this building right here, they recognize some of those there. So.
Also on that, does anybody know what Tinder is? You know what the Tinder app is? You can do your own research. When Jake and I spoke to the kids about this, one student from middle school had mentioned Tinder. So that just shows you, when Kyla had mentioned how young these kids are getting involved in the social media platforms and what they're being exposed to, you do your own research on what Tinder is, and you'll be surprised that a middle student.
That's the same goes for Wiz as well. The Tinder apps and the Wiz apps, you have to be careful of those because they're also, there's dating apps. They're dating apps that they're meeting God only knows who on it. So it's kind of like the same as the adult apps that they have, whether it's eHarmony or that sort of thing. That's what these kids are doing now. So you just want to be mindful of it.
Bumble, that's another dating app. And it's scary to think, you know, how many of us know someone whose son or daughter might look older than they are. They're going on these sites and on these apps to make connections with adults. Sorry.
They won't say it, so I'll say it. Those are hookup apps. That's what they are. So if the college campuses, a lot of the college kids use that, that's how they hook up. But you're getting younger kids with older kids or older adults who also are using it for that same reason, same purpose, right? So that's what it's essentially designed for. So again, having younger kids on it is disturbing.
If you're an adult and you sign up for these apps, that's completely legal. Right. But if you're a 12-year-old signing up for these apps, adults are seeing profiles of children, and that's where our predators come in. And it's scary to think about that. A lot of these also, video is involved. That's the problem with devices, right? Whether it be a Chromebook or a cell phone or an iPad, they all have cameras, right? So I'm going to suggest that any child, and that's pre-K, I have K up here through grade 12, but I would even say pre-K, don't let them take their devices in their bedroom, ever. One of the rules when my kids were younger, they're both gamers, even they're in their 20s too, I'm an old person. They're still both gamers, but I would not allow them to put their gaming devices in their room. They were in a common area. So like the living room or the family room, and maybe it's kind of inconvenient because you only have one television that they're hooked up to, but you're going to be able to hear who they're talking to. And you're going to be able to hear maybe the voice, and does that voice sound like a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old? So I would suggest that, even with the school-issued devices. You know, we provide Chromebooks that can go home. We have safety features on those Chromebooks, but I still would not put or allow the child to have it in their bedroom. The problem becomes, it's now a fight, right? You're gonna now get into an argument with your child who wants to put that device in their bedroom. And I'm not saying it's gonna be easy, but if you sit down and have a conversation about what you're afraid of, and be honest, about this conversation, this session tonight. I think they're gonna shake it off, but you're still the parent or the adult in their lives, and you can set the boundaries. I have this check it out with this arrow because this is the ultimate guide to parental controls. One thing that I know is we're in Norton, we only have Comcast. So I stuck with the Xfinity parental controls. You can actually turn your Wi-Fi off at night. You have the right and the ability, if you have internet in your house, to do that. The devices that we provide students, if you don't want to approach the device in the bedroom at night, you could change the Wi-Fi password. Like if you didn't want to turn the Wi-Fi off, you could keep the Wi-Fi on, but just change the password and not give it to your child. Or you can set up some additional parental controls. I will tell you, Bark, and I noticed that you had some resources for Bark in your presentation. Bark is a really great option for parents to put controls on devices. There's also the family link and the screen time for iOS, in which you can set some boundaries and some controls. And these are just some topics for conversation. When you talk about kids creating accounts, and is it a public account, is it a private account, they may be keeping accounts from you, but you really need to encourage them to keep their accounts private, because nothing gets scrubbed from the internet. Depending upon their age, you would want them to actually know most of the people that they're interacting with. Like my rule used to be, until it became unrealistic, do you actually know this person? Have you ever met this person outside? Because that's how I thought. Like, how can that be a real friend on the internet? But the internet is just another place for these kids. That's how I have to imagine it. This is how they've always known it to be. It's just another place. Just like the playground, just like the mall, right? The internet is just a place. Positives to social media. We try in school really to showcase the good. And we try to model, proper and positive use of social media. We want to make sure that there is, the training wheels, I guess. We're trying to teach, because we're an education institution, we're trying to teach them what is right and what is wrong. And that's, we have classes, whether it be STEAM in elementary or STEM in middle school, or even at the library here at the high school, in which our teachers are sharing and trying to educate our kids about what's appropriate and not appropriate. And again, that's a link at the bottom that we'll share with you. And I'm just going to quickly move through this. So all of these, we have a whole collection of resources for you that we want to make sure. There's some books. We were talking about perhaps bringing the movie Screenagers back. If you have an older child in the district, several years ago, we held an event. It was a showing of Screenagers, but I think we're at a point where we could probably host it again for a lot of new families. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our SROs.
So we get, everything that we're pretty much going to discuss is reiterating what everybody already said, so we'll be very quick. The stuff that we talk about, is we're not here to scare anybody. We're just here to show you what we've been dealing with the past few years. I'm sure you've all heard that saying, we all have something to hide. So think about that when you're talking to your children, right? Especially when we're talking about social media and the apps. Are they hiding stuff from us? Yeah, they probably are, my kids included, right? That's how they communicate. It's not like the old days, like myself and probably Sergeant Denny had that 30-foot cord in the phone and you were in the other room whispering so your parents couldn't hear you. Times have changed, right? It's not like that anymore. But most of the interaction the kids have online are positive. Unfortunately, we have seen a lot of negative. Being one of the SROs and a liaison with the school, what we're really trying to do is prevent the kids from getting in trouble criminally. We want to prevent that, right? Like Kyla had mentioned, we don't want them to have these things follow them. We don't want to have them be affected through their work or colleges or personal and social issues. We don't want that to happen. So as the liaison through the police department, that's what we kind of help to resolve. Well, this is a little different, so I think we want to try to
Do you want to, I think you can keep going.
keep going
Yeah.
through this.
We'll just do this.
Just do it like this.
Play along live here.
Yeah, if you don't mind, we had a little interaction that we're going to try, but
Kyla gave some of the answers already.
yes. So let's see, look, we can find out who's paying
Yeah,
attention.
that's okay.
Yeah,
See
no,
who's
this is
paying
good.
attention.
This is a good review.
So the first question, at what age is my child no longer considered a minor? Just with the people here, do you remember? Well, what do you think it is? 18, you are
Anybody
correct.
disagree?
Can't disagree.
You can't, I already gave it. Correct. 18 is the answer, okay? Your child is considered a minor until you reach the age of 18. Unfortunately, there have been, Kyla might know this too, unfortunately because there have been so many issues with kids between 16, 17, and 18, they're now considering moving the age of being a minor to 25. There is discussion about that happening, showing how crazy the times really are. Second question, we'll do this real quick. Is anybody, how familiar are you with your apps and the media platforms? Do you all feel pretty familiar with what you can do in the settings? B? Somewhat, kind of like all of us, right? I'm the same way, but the only way to learn is to do a little bit of research. And I know, like Karen and Kyla, all the information that they have, we also have a couple of additional slides that will be beneficial that hopefully can help you. So an important question. My child is under the age of 18. Voluntarily takes a nude photo of themselves and shares it. Are there any legal consequences? False. Well, I said it differently, sorry.
Yeah.
It's false. Are there legal consequences? Yes.
Yeah.
There are a handful of child pornography laws that the kids can get in trouble for, unfortunately. Again, being a liaison, we try to prevent that. Obviously, Massachusetts put the laws in place. They're very strict, right? Unfortunately, again, they haven't kept up to the times and technology, so they haven't changed the law, so there is no true law about sexting, and that seems to be coming to the forefront. I know there is legislation now that they're trying to change that, and hopefully that will get passed shortly. Fourth question. There are no consequences when two minors are dating each other and agree to share inappropriate photos with one another. Guesses? False. Right? Even though they're minors, they can't share stuff. The defense of that I'm a minor or consent to send these pictures to each other, that does not work in Massachusetts. Even though you're a minor, you cannot send inappropriate pictures to one another. So, somebody did bring up at one point too, and it's a great question, is that, oh, my daughter and her friends, that they are taking pictures of themselves in bikinis on the beach. Do you think that they could get in trouble for that? What do you think? No, right? Common sense is going to tell you no. They're not committing a open and gross or lascivious act that is going to get them in trouble. They're not posing themselves in a sexual manner. We're talking, this is more related to somebody, unfortunately, is taking an inappropriate picture of them. They're not clothed of their personal parts and then forwarding that on to somebody else. All right, I'll let Jake go with this one.
Number 5, what percentage do you believe represents the number of child sex crime victims who knew or trusted the offender? B.
B, 75. Anybody else want to take a guess?
D, okay, 90?
Last group, anybody?
90, yeah. Yeah, significant number.
Surprised.
Significant number. You know, it goes back to kind of talked about the old aspect of like stranger danger and that, you know, times have certainly changed, but it's still a huge concern, you know, and it's something to be very mindful of when you're having those conversations with your children about, you know, even though they think they're friends, they've never met them actually in person, they may not even know. You could say you could be a dog, you could be anybody on the internet. You can even change this app, you can change your voice to be, you know, sound like a younger child as opposed to, you know, a 50-year-old man or whatever it is. So.
I just want to,
Oh yeah, yeah, you can change. Yeah. It's, I hate to say this, but there's really apps to do. You know, I can call your phone but make it look like it's his phone, not my phone calling. There's all sorts of things where you can change and really alter who you truly are or where you truly are. And it's, yeah. And unfortunately, it's pretty common, it's pretty prolific, and our kids don't always recognize that, you know, they think it's a friend, but they don't know truly who the person is. It could be somebody in the next house over, it could be someone on the other side of the world. You just don't know. So.
can I go back to that
Yes.
last question when you said 90%? You're talking about that they know it's somebody, right? Like you're saying, it's not somebody coming by like when we were kids, right? The band.
Right.
Off the street.
Right.
This is anybody they can know personally, or they can be friends with them on the internet.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. There's some connection there. It's not just a random aspect to it. So, thank you. Question number 6. A minor sends nude pics to someone online. The minor is threatened that the pic will be made public if they don't send more. What would this be an example of? I'm hearing B. Okay, yeah. That's, again, Officer Robichaud spoke about, you know, efforts in the legislature to try to catch up with the times, if you will, and be more reflective of things that are happening with technology and kind of youth with technology. This is one of those areas that they're trying to bring into and catch up with. Unfortunately, we've had cases right here in our town where this is taking place, both with youth and adults. I was actually working a shift on Sunday night, and Saturday, and one of the officers was dealing with a situation where an adult male was being hassled for, sextorted basically was the deal with the case there. So that it is happening. It's happening right here in our community. The concerning part, not that that's not concerning enough, but there are examples too where people are so distraught or so concerned about that going out that they're taking steps to harm themselves to try to escape that. So it's certainly a concerning aspect. So we've kind of hit on this. We'll run through it quick, just repetitively here, but unfortunately in both the high school and middle school, we've had several instances, investigations that involve sexting, using our electronic devices, phones, tablets, whatever it is, to share these messages, to share photographs, to share videos. And again, any site, any app, any way that you can communicate with somebody else or exchange information with somebody else, the possibility is there that could be used in this manner, which is not safe or healthy. The last thing there about permanent public, that's so true that once it's out there, you can't get it back. There was that commercial a few years back now where somebody hit reply all, or a coworker's like, oh, you hit reply all, and they're running around trying to collect all the devices, which is absolutely impossible. We talk with the kids, as young, in my instance, as young with the Yale School, our 4th and 5th graders, and try to get that message across to them at a very young age. Probably half the kids, when we go through those classes, both the 4th and 5th grade groups, at least half the kids have devices, have phones, never mind devices, have phones. We try to really impart that information to them, like, you have to be careful because whatever you do, it potentially can follow you or just be out there. You can't get it back, you can't stop that. So we really want to make them understand that and be cognizant of that. We talked about stranger danger. We can move on from that. So 60% of teens report being contacted by a stranger. 1 in 5 children using the internet have been solicited for sexual reasons. More than half of victims in federal trafficking cases in 2020 were children. And then of those, 89% were between the ages of 14 and 17. You know, certainly those are alarming figures in any sense. Grooming, Kyla had talked about that, so we can move through this. Some of this is...
A lot of this is repetitive, so we'll move on to this last one.
Yeah, this is
just a little.
Unfortunately, you've become very good at this. Through practice.
Honestly, the only way that I know some of this stuff is because of the incidences that we have had and just the research that I've done to kind of educate myself, so that I know what I'm talking about at times with the kids. Because like Karen had said, they know a heck of a lot more than we do. Actually, they have taught me some of the things that I'm not really sure where I'm going, and they've straightened me right out. If you want to take a picture of this slide, you're more than welcome to. This is a little bit of education to help yourself. So what Kyla was talking about is those hidden vaults, okay? To find out what the kids are downloading, what they're doing, where they're putting these things. One, you can check your credit cards. That's a great way you can check your credit card statements. Say, let's say that a student met somebody online. They were exchanging photos. Any of that through different apps. You can look right through here. If you take how many people have an iPhone? If you take your iPhone, you can walk yourself through it. It's very easy. Follow these steps, and it'll show you all the apps that your student or your child has purchased. And if they have those apps and they have hidden them in a certain area, follow the next section of steps, and it will show you what apps or where the apps are hidden. So if a parent is checking, I don't want to say checking up, I say snooping. We're being parents, aren't we? We're taking care of our kids, trying to make sure that they're safe. If you go through it, say they purchase something, they don't want you to know it, they can put it in a hidden app file. You follow those steps and you'll know that they purchased if it doesn't show up on your credit card. Hope I explained that correctly. These are just a few additional resources that we utilize. And so unfortunately, sometimes if a picture gets out there, there's no reeling it back, right? We can't get rid of it. We can try to do our best to control it. Some of these apps are helpful, not that they'll always help you. Some are law enforcement friendly, some are not.
Actually, so again, a few of these
are were reflected on Kyla's portion as well. The one I specifically want to point out, the commonsense.org. So if, then we had the screen there with the various apps that we know the kids are using. If you go on that commonsense.org, it'll give you basically a breakdown of what does that app do. What are the capabilities of it? What are the concerns about it? Maybe what some of the benefits are. But it's just, instead of just seeing Yik Yak, like what the heck does Yik Yak, accomplish, you can go on commonsense.org and you'll basically get a breakdown of what that is capable of, what areas of concern there are. I believe that some of them it even gives not quite like a movie rating, G or PG-13 or whatever it is, but it kind of gives you a sense, is this suitable for my 13-year-old, or is this something that, maybe a 23-year-old would be at the level to be using that. So that's one, again, I saw it on Kyla's. It's definitely one that I've looked at myself, trying to get some information, bless you, and talking with some other parents. I know it's something that they resource frequently to find out exactly what it is that's in front of them now.
The reason we found that hidden apps is we had an issue with one of the students, and his parents came in, and we began to speak to him about what apps he had. He was not divulging any information, didn't say he had anything. Dad said he doesn't have apps, they don't follow it. He checked his accounts with their consent, and sure enough, all the apps pop up. They had them hidden somewhere that they didn't want their parents to find out. So these things are out there, right, Kyla? I'm not a tech guy. I'm going to do my own research to kind of keep up to the times. I hope Kyla can inform me of a few other little things and tricks of the trade, but I think that's it. If anybody has any questions. more than willing to take.
Just on that, okay, on that last point, I'm sorry.
We, the three of us were at a training, like a school resource officer conference, and there's an officer up in the North Shore, and she has one of the breakout sessions, and every year, her session, you walk out of there and your head's spinning, like this is insane, but one of the things she showed us most recently, and again, ties back into some things that Kyla spoke of, the location information, even like drug dealers, you know, the way the drug world has changed, they're going on the apps and looking, you know, pulling up locations and seeing, oh, there's a huge collection of kids over in this particular area, this beach area, whatever it is, and they'll just head over there and kind of circulate among those kids and try to peddle their wares that way. But it's all using these, you know, location pieces of some of these apps that, again, as parents, guardians, family members, you have the ability to control. So, you know, there's another aspect of that. There's another program where kids, they can see their school schedule, which is a beneficial thing, but they can also see other people's schedules, and then by virtue of that, know where people are. So if there's a harassment or an issue like that, and you don't have to think too hard of other examples of how that could be used nefariously, where basically you could track somebody and have a good idea, you know, where they're going to be, and if you have some ill intent, a pretty easy path to get to that person. So again, none of this is to try to scare people, it's trying to educate, but you need to be on top of it really all the time, because there's so much out there that we're, you know, up against and trying to work to keep our kids all safe. But it takes all of us. It's not, you know, it's our jobs, yes, it's the school's jobs, and we all work together to do that, but we really need everybody on the same, you know, kind of on the same team, pulling the same direction to try to work through that. So, Mr. Cersei.
All right, so that's the end of the presentation. Does anybody have any questions? For any of them? Yeah, probably a lot, right?
Just sit like, oh my God.
So again, I think, you know, obviously there's the technology pieces that you can use to, you know, help you manage some of this and kind of have a better idea of what your kid's doing. But the reality is, you know, it's really the old-fashioned, having those conversations, building the trust and the relationships, working with their friends, parents, and, you know, maybe older siblings to keep you a little bit of abreast of what's actually out there. It's really just those kinds of things, and being honest and having you know, conversations. And a lot of times we all know, especially with teenagers, they look at you and they can roll their eyes, all the things that we see here every day. But that's getting in, right? That information is getting in, and giving them examples. And you got to know your kid. Some kids, the scare tactic works. Others, you know, they're going to do the opposite, right? So you got to take a different approach. Some kids, it's giving them the information and using the, you know, the information from the other influencers and the celebrities. So you got to, you know, figure out what might work, try different approaches, and, you know, go from there. We're very lucky here in Norton that we have such a group of people that work together to try to do the best we can to support our kids even when they make mistakes. These folks are not out here to, you know, try to make their lives or anybody else's lives miserable. It's really trying to protect kids the best we can. And, you know, but there are laws and there are consequences that sometimes we can't protect them from. And in our experience, I wouldn't even say that's the biggest thing that's, especially for our kids, it's the social consequences of some of this that is really what I see is the most painful for students and families. So we want you to be aware, have those conversations with the kids. Please, you know, if you have a situation you're not sure of, if you have questions, reach out to any of the counselors in any of the buildings. Reach out to myself, the SROs. We can connect you up with some amazing people with amazing skill sets and information. So for those that are here, please do that. If there's anybody watching, please feel free. Our schools, that's what we're here for as adults. We're really here to try to work with our families and our kids to put them in the best situation to be successful. Kids are gonna make mistakes. It's what they do, right? But hopefully we can minimize the consequences of any mistakes they do make. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and doing the presentation. We do have more coming for the kids themselves. We're going to come out and do some work with the kids at the various buildings. Here at the high school, we do a lot of work in our freshman wellness class around these topics. And you're going to be one of our guest speakers, correct, for our wellness class? So that's going to be fantastic. So, so with that being said, thank you to the folks who came out. Thank you to Norton Media for doing this. And everybody have a good night.